hello again, and welcome to another episode of Sermon B-Sides. My name is Rustin. I'm one of the pastors at Formdale Church, and I'm here with my buddy, my pal, my friend, Pastor John. What's up, Pastor John?
Hey, this is episode 2 of Romans.
Episode 2 of Romans.
Yeah.
You know what I forgot to do at the last episode, John?
What'd you do?
I forgot to tell everybody
I know.
It's your birthday. Happy
It is my
birthday,
birthday
John.
today. Yeah. Today is my birthday. You know what else today is, Rustin?
What is that?
It's 100 days till Christmas.
100? Is it? It's always 100 days till Christmas. That's funny.
You know what's funny is I'm a huge Christmas nut.
Yeah.
And I just realized this like last month that my birthday is 100 days from Christmas. I'm like, how did I not know this for the last I turned 49, so like 49 years. How did I not know this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's my birthday and it's 100 days till Christmas. So I mean, that's really good. We had donuts this morning and my kids
Sweet.
bought me burritos for lunch, and I'm going out to dinner tonight. We had steak yesterday. Just drawing it out as long as we possibly can. It was my birthday eve yesterday. That's what we did.
Ah, nice. So what's birthday dinner for you, John? Where are you going to eat?
Well, okay, so we yesterday we had the family dinner, and typically we'll take the kid out wherever they want to go or do whatever food they want. And so I really wanted to do tri-tip steaks. Yeah. So we grilled up a ton of tri-tip steaks from
Nice.
Costco, and then we had, I think my wife made some coleslaw stuff, and my daughter did onion rings, and I got these special it was Icicle Creek Brewing. They have an Alpenhaze. It's just amazing. So it was
the hazy IPA.
yeah, it was just wonderful. So that was our lunch yesterday, and then we always do charcuterie on Sunday night, so we did that. But my youngest older sister made me an apple pie that was just oh my gosh, just
So good.
I can go to heaven now. Yeah, so good, so good. So that was yesterday, and then this morning, Calvin went and got me donuts for breakfast, and we had that in the morning, and then
Larry and
Gabe
Christie's.
brought me burritos. No, they went to Larry and Christie's and they're closed on Monday, so he had to go to Lone Star.
Okay.
And so he got me the maple bar with bacon. So it's
Nice.
well done, sir. Well done. So tonight, Ryan and I are going to go out because the boys have Bible study at our house. And there's this little teriyaki place outside of Fred Meyer that has these red bean, I don't even know what they are. These little, it's like a roll, but it's doughy. They're just amazing. This is a little hole in the wall place. So that's where we're going. That's our fancy birthday dinner.
Nice. Well, you have to take a picture of that red bean roll thing, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, you would love it. It's so good.
I probably
I'll
would,
take a
because I
picture.
do like just about everything. So
You do like everything. I saw you posted a picture of some was it deviled eggs with anchovies?
yeah, so this is a very European thing. You do a soft boiled egg and a really nice homemade aioli, which is really just a fancy word for mayonnaise, and then an anchovy, but not just any anchovy. These are not your really super salty canned anchovies. These are Spanish white anchovies that are not really they're not canned. They're kind of fresh, they have a little bit of a brine to them, but they're good. I know. Delicious.
I believe that you enjoy them.
Yeah. On that same trip, we also had oysters. So I know a lot about raw oysters. So
I can't do
all right.
seafood.
Romans.
No seafood for me.
Well, happy birthday, John.
Romans too. Thank you.
And for your birthday, we are going to talk about one of the most infamous passages in the New Testament, and one of the most helpful and informative passages in terms of, just even assessing the human condition. You probably are similar to me in that this is a passage that you refer back to a lot in thinking about the state of man without Christ, engaging with a world that is opposed to Christ, and kind of, I guess one of the more doctrinal things that comes out of this passage is where it's kind of a fancy term, but the noetic effects of the fall.
Yeah.
How does our rejection of God impact our knowledge and our discernment. And this passage deals with all that stuff. And
Yeah.
it's a passage that is very explicit about homosexuality, and
Yeah.
kind of it's almost like it gives us an understanding of where that comes from in terms
Mhm.
of the, like, I don't know, you might call it the moral genesis of something like homosexuality. And so it's a passage that all starts with reference to the wrath of God.
The wrath of God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, I don't know about what your kind of story was for coming to terms with the doctrines of grace,
Mm-hmm.
but this one in Ephesians 2 were huge for me because
Yep.
once you understand what the Bible teaches about the condition of the heart,
Yes.
it becomes clear that nothing short of the sovereign grace can rescue us out of
Yes.
this mess. And that's what about the noetic effects of sin, that
Yeah.
meaning that sin has gotten into absolutely every part of our
Yes.
human existence. All that it means to be human has been affected by that. It's everywhere. I think it was Michael Horton who said, "We're not as bad as we could be, but we're as bad off as we could be."
Hmm.
Um,
That's good.
so, yeah, so yeah, the second part of Romans 1 really lays that foundation for understanding um, just what has happened with sin. Because I think sometimes we can think sin is like breaking a rule. It's like, well, in one sense, yeah, missing the mark and in failing to conform to God's standards. Yes, but there is this massive underworking. There's things that happen in the heart and the mind, and it's devastating. So yes,
Yeah. And
big text.
the passage begins, and I think that there's a good tie here into that, the need for sovereign grace,
Yeah,
by just looking at the opening sentence of this part,
yep,
Romans
yep,
1:18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. Right. So
yeah,
I think you emphasize this in the sermon. It doesn't say it will be revealed.
correct. Yeah,
It is revealed. So
this is a
what does that mean?
yeah, it's a present reality. So just
Yes.
to back up real quick, because I didn't say this I had a whole introduction to this written on Sunday, and then I went back and changed it after the events of
Sure.
Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think it's important to understand the transition from verse 16 and 17 to verse 18.
Yes. Good.
Because in verse 17 it says, For in it, that is in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul says the righteousness of God is revealed. And so one of the questions you can anticipate is, why must the righteousness of God be revealed? Why does he have to reveal it in the gospel, which reveals the righteousness by which we are saved? Why does that have to happen? And the answer to that is what happens in verse 18, because the wrath of God is also revealed, which necessitates the righteousness of God being revealed to us.
Yes.
It has to be shown, because we fall into the 18 through 32 column,
yes.
not the 16 and 17 column.
Yes. And so when you say the righteousness of God needs to be revealed, you're talking specifically about the righteousness that can be ours through the gospel.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So
because wrath is revealed and we are all under wrath, which we can unpack that, the only way out is for a righteousness that saves us to be revealed, and that's what the gospel does.
Yes.
But I just wanted to say here that Paul in the later half of the chapter is answering the question, why is it necessary that the righteousness by which we are saved must be revealed to us? It must be revealed to us because the wrath of God is revealed from heaven right now, right here, against all ungodliness and all unrighteousness. Yep. And those are huge umbrellas. This is everybody's part of this.
Yes.
So
both of those things, his wrath and his righteousness revealed through the gospel, are his initiatives. They're his.
Correct.
That's his sovereign initiatives, and in line with his character and his glory. And so I think that's really important to emphasize, because when you look at this part, it's like you don't, that the fact that it's a present reality means that, and I mean specifically the context of it, like God's wrath basically is in Romans 1 here demonstrated by giving people over to their sins, to their desires. And that, I don't think we often think about God's wrath in those terms. Like we think about God's wrath as meting out punishment, but God's wrath here is emphasizes, okay, you have rejected him, you've refused to give thanks to him, you've exchanged his glory for, idols. So what is God going to do? Well, the first part of his wrath being revealed is he's giving you over to those things.
Yeah, to do these things. And I think that we ordinarily think we do these things and therefore the wrath of God is coming.
Yes.
And there is a sense in which that is true, but that's not what Paul's saying here. Paul's saying the very fact that these things are being done is the wrath of God.
Yes.
So when you see widespread sexual perversion in a society, we shouldn't just be thinking, oh, judgment is coming. We should think judgment is here.
Yes.
This is what God does. He lets loose the chains that restrain us from wickedness when we exchange the truth for a lie, when we replace his glory with lesser glories, and we worship the creature rather than the creator, right? When we do that, which are all things, those are all invisible things that are happening in here and here, right?
Yeah.
Those things don't remain invisible. And God hands us over. So it basically is saying, okay, you want godlessness, you want a lie, you want chaos rather than the order that I have created in nature. Okay, you can have those things. And he gives us over to the wicked desires of our heart. And those wicked desires manifest themselves through, Paul's first example is homosexual behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that, I mean, that connection, I think that connection, again, I just want to bring it up again because I think it's really revealing here. So if God's wrath is revealed in that he gives us over to our desires, right? How do we get out from underneath those desires that are contrary to God? And the answer isn't us, because we're like experiencing that wrath being revealed. It has to be God.
Yeah. It has to be God, right?
And so that's, to me, that's the sovereign grace, the doctrines of grace thing right there. Like if the problems are we're under the wrath of God and we want what we want because the wrath of God, right? How do I get out from that? I can't. I have to have God from outside show me grace.
Yeah.
And change my heart.
Yeah.
And so that's
absolutely. The problem is so deep that you're past the point of just change your mind.
Yes.
There's, if God has given us over to impure hearts and debased mind, then the only way that you can get out of that is to get a new heart and a new mind.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Which is what regeneration and rebirth is all about, and which is why that is absolutely necessary in order for us to be saved. It's not something we can do.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So dive into the next, which you brought up already, which is homosexuality. I wanted to just bring up and give you, hear from you, what or of churches avoiding the topic of the wrath of God. Because I think you mentioned this in the sermon, it's not very popular to talk about wrath. It's almost like the pastors of many churches feel like I need to present God in his kindness at the exclusion of his wrath, right?
Yeah.
And we don't see that in the Bible. So what is the cost of doing that?
What is the cost of minimizing the wrath of God?
Or just avoiding it altogether. Yeah.
Well, the problem is that when you minimize the wrath of God, you then consequently minimize all the other attributes of God. So when you say God's wrath isn't that big of a deal, you are saying the death of Christ isn't that big of a deal. The atonement isn't that big of a deal. Forgiveness isn't that big of a deal, because what you have in the gospel is not simply God's mercy and His grace being displayed, which you certainly do, but you also have the wrath of God. Like you
Yeah.
are seeing the extent of God's hostility towards godlessness in the execution of Christ.
Yes.
You are
Yes.
seeing wrath. And so if you minimize the wrath of God, then you're minimizing the cross. You're
Yes.
minimizing the gospel. You're minimizing the love of God, because in First John it tells us that this is love, not that we loved God, but that He loved us and sent His Son to be a propitiation for our sins. So the cross in which Christ suffers as our substitute is the most powerful manifestation, representation of the love of God. And if you want to downplay the suffering of Christ, you can't do that without also simultaneously downplaying the love of Christ,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And so it becomes a self-defeating it becomes a self-defeating argument.
Yes.
And I think that there's a game that pastors want to play by avoiding the wrath of God. But when you avoid the wrath of God, you also avoid the call to repentance, which is why I think churches that don't, speak plainly about the wrath of God tend to be churches where sin isn't really dealt with, and that's not really a church.
Yes.
It's like a hospital where you go to just die
It's
instead of a place where you
it's
go to
just
get.
straight up hospice, and they're going to give you
It's
morphine
hospice.
so you
Yeah,
don't.
no,
Yeah.
that's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just want you to feel better while you're dying.
Exactly. Yes, that's a really good analogy for that. So I think that there's also, I think, within the same group of people that want to avoid, there's a group within that group that want to avoid the wrath of God, who are also downplaying substitutionary atonement.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know this guy very well, but like he's pretty popular, John Mark Comer. Okay.
Yeah.
He recently, I think, shared a picture of a book he had read, and he's like, finally a book that I think is putting the nail in the coffin for substitutionary atonement, right? And then we've both read that nasty N.T. Wright book, The Day the Revolution Began, which is just nasty.
Part of it.
Yes, I know. I couldn't finish.
I couldn't finish it.
Yeah, and I have read N.T. Wright books and benefit from them. That one made me question ever reading an N.T. Wright book.
Yeah.
So but there's a tendency to say, no, it's not about the substitution where God's wrath gets poured out on His Son, and it's like but I don't understand how you have like it doesn't about the cross. Then is that Christ is just stepping into our mess. Like, what? How does that save us? And how does that make sense of the wrath of God? Because like the wrath of God is almost a foreign ingredient to that notion of salvation.
Yeah, well, I think for N.T. Wright and maybe for others, it's like you're almost leaning into liberation theology.
Yeah.
Right, where it's like the Son of God is taking on the powers of darkness and He's victorious over it. And there is a sense in which that is true.
Yeah.
But if it's funny because N.T. Wright is like steeped in Old Testament history in Israel. It's like, well, what was happening with all those lambs that were sacrificed at the temple on the altar? Like, why did the priest have to put his hands on heads and confess sins and slaughter them? And then because that's the type that is being fulfilled in the crucifixion. John the Baptist makes that very clear. He says, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Like, what does it mean for Jesus to be the Lamb of God?
Yeah.
Well, we know what lambs do because we know the temple, we know the sacrificial system, we know that they die and their blood is shed and they go to the altar and it's like, yeah.
And I mean, Christ is called our Passover lamb in the New Testament. And
yes.
The Passover lamb, the whole idea is there is that blood has been shed so that when the destroyer sees it, it's like the blood is saying it's already been done. Don't destroy, right?
100%.
And so Christ is that between us and the God who rightly has wrath against us.
Yeah.
So that whole denying the substitutionary atonement thing just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And and I think that what happens is people go down certain like theological motifs, like Christus Victor, and it's like they
Yeah.
think that it's completely like this new thing kicks out all the other ideas. But I would commend, if anybody wants to study this at all, there's a great little essay by G.K. Beale, and it's
Mm,
called Christus Victor through Substitutionary Atonement. And it
yes.
ties those two things together in a way that is just like, yes, this is how he's victorious. He's victorious by taking the sins of his people and leaving them in the grave and
Yeah.
rising up against the accuser who held those things against the people and brought them before God. So it's like,
Amen.
it's very it's just, this is what happens. It reminds me of like Arianism. It's like when you take one truth and you separate it from the other,
Yes.
like Jesus Christ is truly man. If you full stop
Yeah.
that, you're
Yeah.
in heretical territory. If
Right.
you go
Yeah.
Christus Victor, this motif without substitutionary
Yeah.
atonement, you lose the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a couple years ago I was had the same thoughts. Like when you take, it was actually I think it was called The Way of the Lamb,
Okay.
or Meek and Mild. It was one of those books where it was like it was taking one attribute of Christ and treating it as if it was representative of everything. So it's like when you take a truth and you treat it like it's the truth, you end up
Yeah.
with no truth,
Yes.
right? You just
Yeah.
you have to take the totality. You have to take it all in. And so yeah, there is a sense in which there's Christus Victor, and yes, we do have Christ as the example of love and obedience. We have all those things,
Yeah.
but we have all those things as he's dying, like you said, as our substitute, as our representative to atone for our sins. And you have to take all of that in to get the full picture. Otherwise, you're not getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways,
So yeah,
moving on.
anyways,
So that's
The
important.
Day the
because
Revolution Began is not a good book by N.T. Wright.
It's
And I do not
garbage.
recommend
Yeah.
anybody to read it.
Yeah, agreed. So the thing that now I want to finish our time with is one of the more potent passages in Scripture dealing with homosexuality, and I think that the context, which you unpacked in the sermon yesterday, is super valuable because I think that there is a kind of like a tendency, as you talked about yesterday, to kind of like think about homosexuality as just one in a list, and then to kind of like downplay all the things in that list, right?
Yeah.
One in the list of sins. But the way that Paul emphasizes it in this passage is like it's an indicator of something, right?
Mhm.
It's an indicator of how far gone we've gone, right?
Yes.
And I think you shared an awesome Sproul quote about that.
So good.
But
That's so good.
Yeah, that was golden Sproul. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what is Paul doing here in this passage by like immediately bringing up homosexuality as an impact of the fall.
Yeah. So one of the things I was trying to do was like anticipate questions, right? So whenever you're preaching, like you want to anticipate questions, but you also you have to anticipate questions of a text in terms of like, well, why would Paul do this? Why would?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you have a whole like junk drawer of sins just a couple verses later when he talks about, coveting and evil. I'm reading this right now. Unrighteousness, envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness, gossip, slanders, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless, right? He's got this whole list of things, but those are all like one word, like mentions, and they're kind of just,
machine gun.
Like, yeah, machine gun, like, da-da-da-da-da. But he gives quite a bit of attention to homosexuality first.
Yeah.
And so there's an importance in the order that they're given. And I didn't get into this yesterday, but it's not just an order of he deals with homosexual behavior first, but he deals with the women first before he addresses men.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. And maybe we can just get into that because it's all indicating the same thing.
Yeah.
So there are a number of, and I said this yesterday, other sexual sins that Paul could have listed that he doesn't list. He just goes after this sin. And so the reason is why. Why this sin? Why is it first? And the reason is that he is coming up with the most vile example of what it looks like to be given over
Yeah.
to shameful desires, to be given over to the wicked things that our heart desires. He goes, if you want to know what it looks like to to follow this all the way out, to suppress the truth and to receive a lie and to replace God and to reject his glory and to worship a creature, do you want to know what this looks like? Here's what it looks like. And he presents homosexual behavior. Now, within that, he presents the women first, and Sproul again was helpful in like, why does he's the one who's asking the question, why does he do
Yeah.
that? And he does it because there's this general assumption that the females are the fairer gender, right?
Hmm.
It's the guys who do all the gross stuff, and women are, generally speaking, are more civilized. And so when he mentions the women first, it's as if he's saying it's so bad that even the women are participating in this kind of behavior,
Yeah. Yeah.
this unnatural passion, this dishonorable passion, this unnatural relationship. Guys, this is so dark, even the women do this.
Yeah.
That's essentially
Yeah.
what he's saying. Now what happens is that when you try to, in terms of sin, like being egalitarian, say that all sins are just basically the same thing, you're actually losing, um, you're short circuiting the way that the Bible is meant to kind of wake you up.
Yeah.
Because when Paul lists this, he's like, guys, this is how bad it is.
Yeah.
This is how vile it is. And then he goes in and then he lists all those other sins, which are far more prevalent and normal to everybody.
Yeah.
And he's using the vileness, the darkness of homosexuality to say these things are super vile, right? This is where it goes. But when you minimize the sin of homosexuality, you end up minimizing every other sin.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a kind
When you
of I think that the proper interpretation of this passage is somewhat dependent upon the people receiving it having a proper ick factor to
Yes.
that perversion.
Yes.
And so much of the church in the last couple decades has been working to actually undo that ick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Undo the like it's perverse. It's very shameful. And we should be, because it's mentioned first so that we would see, and you guys do this. It's in the same genus. It's in the same
Yes.
family of rebellion, and it's a really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good example of when you mentioned the women first. It's a good example of the darkness, I think he talks about how claiming they became futile in their thinking. And
Yeah.
claiming to be wise, they became fools. Well, especially when you think about just nature, like especially during the time this was written, women generally were economically, provisionally dependent upon men, right? So it's almost like he's saying, this is how crazy it is. Women are forsaking the very thing that gave them protection in culture, and their passions have so taken over that it's like it's not just self-destructive in that the sin itself is destructive, but it's like it is foolish. It's giving up on the very way God made things to be for her good, and it's like of all people to know their need, like for the protection that God made men to give. There's a kind of like rejection of that, which is just it's a foolishness on its face. But in an egalitarian culture that we live in, we don't even understand. Like that didn't even cross our minds when we read a passage like this. But that's layers to it's almost like a rhetorical device on Paul's part. And you're not getting the punch of the rhetorical punch if you don't actually have that understanding.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned to you during or between services yesterday that churches that and I think I might do a blitz about this. Churches that downplay the sin of sexual immorality may say that they're trying to be, compassionate and understanding and sensitive or whatever. And I'm just going to call BS on all of it.
Yeah.
The reason that we downplay homosexuality is because when we do that, we can also downplay our own sin,
Hmm.
right? Because Paul is
Yeah.
saying it's so bad. Here's an example of it, and now you can understand that this class of sin is in common with these other things. But if we're saying, well, homosexuality really isn't that bad, then what we're saying that when we then can say is, well, our sin really isn't that bad.
Yeah. To say homosexuality isn't that bad, but you still believe it is sin, right? Necessitates that you think there's sin that's not that bad.
That's not that bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we've talked about there's an author, a speaker. I don't want to call him a Christian, but he's been to local churches in our community multiple times. I think his name's
Coles, right?
Coles. Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah.
Greg Coles.
Yeah, and he's multiple times has said the most vile things.
Yeah.
Like, he has no problem with his homosexual desire, and if there was a like a Tylenol he could take that would make it go away, he wouldn't take it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't actually think it's sinful.
Yeah.
Like you're okay with something that the Bible calls is
Yeah.
an abomination, and
Yeah.
we have lost our ability to be appalled at something that Paul expects we will be appalled by.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Paul says this because he thinks we're all going to kind of throw up in our mouth a little bit, and then he can leverage that to help us see the wickedness of our own hearts. But we're not appalled by it anymore.
Yeah, and I think it sounds strange, but it's like part of Christian discipleship is helping people's sensibilities be shaped by what the Bible's sensibilities are. Meaning, we should actually cultivate that is perverse and shameful to a certain like. It's not that this is sin and this is not, but the heinousness of it, in that it is a rejection. It's a sin against the body. It's a rejection of God's design and nature. It's in the heart, but it's an externalized sin that is also just everything about it is rejecting God, His design, His image. All these things. It's defacing all of it, and so it's like a prism of all these heart things and these other sins that just crystallizes it. Like this is like what it looks like when man completely rejects God and everything God made.
Yeah. Yep.
So the rejection of
absolutely.
So there's a lot of I remember listening to an interview with that Greg Coles guy, and one of the things it was a debate, because I think it was James White debated him. And one of the things that James White brought up is like, don't you think it's a sin to not love and praise and seek to conform to what God says is very good? It's like God says that this design is very good, and to say I wouldn't change my quote unquote orientation with the Tylenol says that you don't actually think that you should conform to what God says is very good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that is revealing. And a lot of this just has to do with like we've Gnostified the Christian view of stuff. Like we don't we want to disconnect these things that are boots on the ground life stuff from belief and faith.
Yeah.
And you can't do that.
That's right.
So I want to talk just briefly. I mean, we're already at time, but I thought it would be good to talk about just briefly the last point, which was how sin and rejecting God, and these particular things that he mentions leads to like the unraveling of society.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to make clear was when you reject the truth of God, you reject truth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You don't reject just some truth. There isn't God's truth and then our truth over here. Like all truth is God's truth. So when you reject truth, the only option on the table is a lie.
Yes.
When you reject nature, all that's left on the table is chaos and unnatural things.
Yes.
And so that's just an inescapable reality. And when you do that, that trickles down into every part of society. And so when you have, as a culture, when you celebrate what the Bible presents as the thing that should make you throw up in your mouth a little bit if you think about it, right? This
Yeah.
most vile thing. When you are celebrating that which should be repulsive, you are then inviting in all of the other things that all we should also be repulsed by.
Yeah.
You are inviting in all of the other lies. You're inviting in all of the other wickedness, all of the other corruption. And so those are the things that are all listed later
Yeah.
in Romans chapter 1. And it's important to know you don't get one without the other.
Yep.
You can't do it. If you invite rampant sexual morality, and what Paul talks about at the end of the chapter is crazy, because he says, though they know God's decree that those who practice such things deserve to die. Like, think about that. They know that if you do this, you deserve to die. They know this. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, we didn't know. No, they know that. And not only do they continue to do them, but they approve anybody who practices them. So we know this leads to death, and we
Yeah.
approve of everybody who practices it. So when you as a society or a culture are not only tolerating something, but you are celebrating something that is vile, right? You're just opening the door to all other unrighteous, evil, wicked acts.
Yeah.
And it is only a matter of time before that begins to unravel. And I think I believe that's what we're seeing right now, is that,
Yeah.
as a country, our leaders put their cards on the table and said, we believe in gay marriage. And it was like, okay, how many cities have burned in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
You think about like assassinations. Like when is the last time someone was assassinated like that in our country?
Yeah.
We had 2 assassination attempts on our current president. Like, when was the last time that happened?
Yeah.
Like, there's just look at the schools. Look at what
Yeah.
go to a school board meeting. What's happening with kids?
Yeah.
Like, all these things are connected. They cannot be separated,
Yeah.
because when you open the door to the most vile of sins, you also welcome in all of the others
Yeah.
to go along with it.
Yeah. When you reject God, you reject all of the ways He has designed things and set things up for our good.
Yeah.
And the trajectory, seems to be, first you reject God, and then you want to keep His good stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Then you kind of want to keep less of His good stuff, and you start celebrating things that are just self-destructive. Like the transgenderism thing is one of the biggest examples. You literally, I mean, we could talk about assisted suicide and abortion as well, but transgenderism is like, we're going to cut off healthy organs.
Yeah. From children.
From children. That's self-destructive. It's like we are now rejecting not just God, but also the good things that He's given. And what happens when you do that and there's nothing left? Like you keep going down the line. What else? What other good thing? And it's like you have chaos. You're gonna reject an order system by law. You reject truth, and you're gonna reject any sort of dialogue with people, and it's gonna be like you're constantly in a state of war with each other. It's like this just leads to chaos, and the only thing that holds societies together is that like glimmer of light that comes from we're living in with the grain of how God made us, because we're in communion with Him. Yeah. And so I think there's been a lot of pagan societies that have experienced this self-destructive thing, and it's like cyclical. Like there might be some acknowledgement of this is the better way to do things. Like I think about like even I think about like Marcus Aurelius and some of the Greeks. They could kind of see, like Paul says, grasping in the dark, that there are some things that are just like embedded in nature that we should not go contrary to. Like, and it was like it was some of this stuff, even sexuality, and and people can see that. It reminds me of Romans 1. Like they know it's true. They know it, right? Yeah. And the more you reject those things, the more it just turns to societal chaos. And that's where we are right now. And God save us and bring revival.
That's right. So on the one hand, you've got the wrath of God being revealed, but the righteousness of God is also revealed.
Yes. to get out from to live out from the wrath of God. Christ has taken that wrath
Amen.
on himself to free us to live now with the grain, to live in communion with God. Yeah, which is for our good and our peace and our joy.
Yeah. One of the things, maybe we can close with this, is when I first was introduced to Tim Keller, it was the Jeremiah text about seek the peace and prosperity of the city. Yeah. And I was like, that's in there, and we should do that. But I don't think we think that through enough.
Yes.
Right? In light of Romans 1 and the second half of Romans 1 and what it says about these particular sins and what it brings upon a people, what does it look like to seek the peace and prosperity of our city? It probably looks like opposing these things.
It does, yeah.
Because when you welcome these things, you have anything but peace and prosperity in the city.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end it, John.
Okay.
Everybody, thanks for listening to Sermon B-Sides. Until next time, trust Christ, go to church, and love your neighbor. See ya.
See ya.